Hello and welcome back to the channel with me, the Orienteering Kid, where today we're in Turku for the second round of the TURUS tournament. Now today we're still in Turku as we are for the 5 days in this series for the second round of this tournament, a 5-day event to replace ETOC 2021 which is due to be held this week but had to be cancelled due to COVID. But this has been great fun so far. It's all been planned by Juha Hersalmi, and today's advisor, as it's a different advisor for every event, is Tuomo Markelin, and I'm sure if Juha's planned it in a similar way to how he planned it yesterday, it's going to be great fun with some difficult forest trailo, but still very solvable. So we're going to jump straight into it now. We're going into the TURUS tournament section, and we are going into event 2, which today is a 1 to 3000 map with 2 meter contours. We have 6 stations rather than 5, and a 30-second penalty for every wrong answer with a 0 tolerance of 5 meters, no exceptions. The terrain is forest, and we have the instructions being that a black X is going to be a frisbee golf basket. Due to frisbee golf, the ground is very worn in some stations and in the photo may look like a path. So there may be extra paths on the ground which aren't mapped, and we have to remember that. We also have red and white arrows like last time on top of the picture showing the positions of all the flags. So nothing seems too irregular there, just remembering that there may look like extra paths in the area. As always, my answers will be appearing in the top right hand corner of the screen so you can see exactly what I'm putting, correct or wrong, with the black and red letters respectively at the moment that I do. And yeah, with that, let's have a go at the second round of the TURUS tournament. And here is station 1. Okay, we've got rocks around. It looks like a big boulder by Foxtrot. That could be that crag. Could it be? Can't I believe that's Foxtrot? And what does that make? No, I'm struggling to believe that is Foxtrot. I'm going to zero that. That crag there, or that hill, I think is Alpha. And then in the re-entrant, I'm going to go with Delta up to the crag, which is Echo, and maybe Foxtrot was the right answer to the first one, and that is Alpha again. So it's probably one mistake there, as I realised going to the 5th task, and I think it was Foxtrot to start us off, even though I was toying with it a bit. But it was a double Alpha in the 2nd and 5th tasks, as the circle was about in the same place, and one of them was the top of the hill, the other one was on top of the crag. I think they were both very clear, no zeros, so the third one in the re-entrant could be a 0. I'll have to check that afterwards, but overall I thought that was a very good station. And so with that, we will just move on to the next station of the day, which is station 2. Okay, boulders in the background, quite far. That could be a path, that is a path. So the bigger boulder is going to be Echo, with the knoll there being Foxtrot up there. Seems too far away. And that's going to be Charlie coming forward, that has to be Alpha. And that was a much better station for me in 13 seconds. To me, when the map loaded, it was very clear that there were 2 boulders by Delta and Echo, and Echo's boulder was much bigger than Delta, and there was also a path running to the right of it, so I think that was very clearly the place that we wanted for the first task, wanting the bigger boulder, so it had to be Echo. And then also coming forward, I had noticed the small lump of ground by Foxtrot, and so when we came to the knoll for the second task, I was very quick there. The third task being a 0 was probably the hardest, but I'm definitely happy with that, with the 5th task being Alpha. It's definitely too far up the hill, and also that 4th task being Charlie, I'm pretty sure, out on the boulder at the back. I'm a lot happier with that station than I was in the first one, and so that's definitely given me a boost. And so we'll finish off the first half of the day here with station 3. Okay, we've got crags up the top, big mess of crags, potentially a re-entrant in between though. That looks like that could be that, to which I'm going to believe that is Alpha. And then going back there, that could be Charlie. That crag going round. Yeah, I can actually believe that's Charlie going round there though. Is that going to be Bravo? Bravo does seem to fit. And then coming forward again, I want it more in line with that knoll, so I'm wondering whether this one is a 0. I'm going to 0 that, and then coming forward again, I think that's another 0. So maybe the fourth task was Echo on the crag, but the final one was definitely 0 right in front of us. And I was actually thrown a bit at the start of that station because it was quite hard to see the detail looking up the hill. I could see the shape in the crag with most of the flags on it, and I could see a re-entrant on the map as well. And going just to the left of that was another crag nicely placed where Alpha was, and that's the crag that we wanted. So I think it was clear it was Alpha the first one. I was just believing that Charlie was in the right place for the second task, but there was a lump of ground there, and I could see a couple of crags working down from that, and also Bravo as well. I think it was pretty clear. I'm just querying Echo or 0, but again we'll check that afterwards. And we are now already halfway through the day here, and so we are moving on to the second half, starting with Station 4. Okay, we got crags around. There seems to be a massive crag actually. Well, bigger than what's suggested there, but maybe we are in the right place. Let's see. I'm wondering if it's that boulder in which none of the kites are on it there. I think we're going to 0 it and move on. We're in a completely different place, so we're probably right. And then that long crag. I'm still struggling to make that fit, to be honest, so I'm going to 0 it. Okay, maybe we are here. In that re-entrant, I think is Charlie now. And then coming down here, that looks like it's probably Foxtrot, to then come to that boulder. And if that one was Charlie, it's probably got to be Bravo. And that was my longest station so far, and probably my worst one. I think I was good to go with 0 to start off the station as things didn't seem to fit. But after that, the second task wasn't too clear, and I'm wondering whether it should have been Delta or Echo, and we'll have a proper look at that afterwards. But Charlie in the re-entrant, Foxtrot on the crag, and Bravo on the boulder to finish off the station, I think was fairly clear. And so it's just that second task I'm querying there, which just shows I'm not doing too bad at all. I'm currently about similar to yesterday, maybe just a bit slower, but I'm finding these a bit harder. However, we are now moving into the penultimate station of the day, which for today is Station 5. Okay, we've got crags around. We seem to have a hill on the right hand side, that boulder, or that knoll. I'm struggling to find a crag that fits it, so we are actually going to be there. Are those two knolls, or is that a hill and a knoll? I reckon that one's Charlie, and then go back to the foot of that hill, I think is Delta. That knoll, foot of that knoll, is going to be Foxtrot, and then coming down to the crag there to Alpha to finish off. And I did like that station. I was more confident in saying we were in the wrong place for that one to start with, because I couldn't see any crags around that knoll which seemed to fit it, and then we came down to the crag of Charlie and then up to the knoll of Delta, so things did seem to match up from then on. Also with Foxtrot on the knoll, which didn't seem to be too clear, but it seemed in about the right place, and so I'm happy with that one, before going across to the left hand side to finish on the crag for Alpha. And so I don't think that station went too bad for me at all, and so I'm going to be confident in going into this final station of the day, which is Station 6. Okay, we've got they're probably the paths which don't exist, and there's boulders. Okay, that massive boulder does seem to be in line with that crag. There seem to be a couple more boulders there as well, so I can believe that one is Foxtrot. And then going up there is going to be Bravo or nothing. Can I believe it's Bravo? Yeah, let's go with Bravo. All the way back there to the... Feels too far back, so I'm going to 0 it. Boulder there is Alpha, and then going back up there. Is that a crag? Looks like a crag there actually. We've got to go between those two boulders, so it's going to be Charlie to finish off the day. And with a time of 242 seconds, there's probably at least 2 mistakes in there, but I'm not really disappointed with that. I think it was quite a tough day, so let's go and have a look and see how we did. And with the first station, what I saw here was a crag running across with Bravo and Echo at different points, and a bit more bare rock on the left hand side, and a boulder over here by Foxtrot. So when the map came up and we wanted a crag, I was struggling to see exactly where we were, and so I did end up zeroing this after 27 seconds, thinking that we were probably in a different place down here. But I can see now that if we look at this area, we are on the bare rock, and there are 2 crags where the rock face is a lot steeper, and I think that's where Bravo and Echo have been very nicely placed. So if you use that and work our way around, we want a bit further around from Echo, and this is the rock that we can see with Foxtrot on it as the crag that we actually want. And so I'm thinking this is now Foxtrot to start off the station. Very well done if you did manage to get that one right. But we then moved on to the second task, and we wanted the top of the hill on the left hand side, where I was a lot happier with going with Alpha here, as I think I'd realised that these 2 crags were the crags here by now, and so there must be a crag disappearing down on the other side of Alpha. So that was a nice Alpha there. And then for the third task, we came into the re-entrance, and I had to think a lot more about whether I thought Delta was in the right place here, as we're coming forward from the Bravo and Echo crag, so Delta's the only candidate, and I didn't want it too far away from Bravo and Echo, but I think with a 5 metre tolerance it does seem to be about where I want it, maybe thinking it should be about there. It's not too far away at all, so I'm happy to accept that one is Delta for the third task, before going back to the middle of the 3 crags in the line, and this one is definitely Echo as we've been talking about it already, so I was happy with that one there, before finally going to the big crag again on the left hand side, where we've already had Alpha on the top of the hill, and we want on top of this crag. Now we do remember from previous events that controls can take multiple control descriptions in the location that they are, and so even though Alpha was on top of the hill previously, it's also at the top of this crag, and so I think this one is definitely Alpha again to finish off the station, and so it probably is only 1 mistake for me here, and I didn't think this was too bad a station to open in on. I probably should have noticed that the 2 crags in the line were these 2 earlier, and so I would have been happy with Foxtrot straight away, but well done if you did manage to get that one right. And then we moved on to station 2, and here we had a bit of a different view, as it was less rocky forest and more grassy forest, even though there were still some rocks around here with Charlie, Delta and Echo, and this was the main thing to spot in this station. I was wary about this path, as we have been told before that some of the paths don't exist on the map, but when the map came up and I could see a couple of rocks here together and a path running to the right hand side, I was happy to say we were probably in the right place, and I had spotted that Delta and Echo were on 2 different boulders, with the Echo boulder being a lot bigger than the Delta boulder. So the Echo boulder must be the one that we want as the bigger of the 2, and we want the southeastern side, which is the side that Echo's on. So that was a nice Echo to start off the station there, and then we actually came forward and we wanted a knoll just on the right hand side of the path, and so I looked just on the right hand side of the path to see where that knoll could be, and there's a small lump of land here, and I can't see anywhere else on the map this lump of land could be, so this one must definitely be the knoll that we want. We want the southern side of that knoll, and Foxtrot's very nicely placed there. So that was going to be Foxtrot for the second task. Well done if you did manage to spot that, before we then went up the hill all the way on the left hand side to try and find a boulder, and to me this was very clearly a 0 straight away, because what I decided was Bravo was too close to Delta and Echo to be the correct one, probably on this crag here maybe, and so Alpha was far enough forward, but it wasn't high enough up the hill, and there's definitely no boulder there. So the place we wanted was a long way out of view to the left hand side, and this must be a 0, before we then went to another boulder further back behind Delta and Echo. So for me it was going to be Charlie or nothing. We want the southern side of the boulder that we want, and Charlie's definitely on the southern side, and if we try and line it up from where these 2 boulders are, it does seem to fit quite nicely. So I was happy with Charlie there, and then we were very quick with an Alpha to finish off the station. Same speed actually than with the first station finishing with an Alpha, as we are given a spur here, and it's just to the left hand side of the path opposite the knoll, and we go up there and we can see that Alpha does seem in about the right place on this spur, and it should be an Alpha to finish off this station. And so with that being the quickest station for me of the day, I did think it was a good one. I thought all the features were very clear, but I could appreciate some of the tasks, like the one going up the hill, might be hard to grasp straight away, so well done if you did manage to do well in that station. And then we moved on to station 3, and this one did get a bit harder, as what we had here was a load of crags in front of us, and I was expecting quite a few black lines to appear on the map, but when the map came up and there were only a few, I was immediately wondering whether we were in the right place. But what I had seen as a re-entrant re-entrant running to the left hand side of Bravo, and you can see on the map there does seem to be a re-entrant here with some crags lining it, which must be about where Bravo is. You can see where the crags are quite nicely, and so we want to go just to the left of Bravo to another crag, and we are coming a bit forward from where I think Bravo is as well. So if we're coming forward from Bravo, we can see there's a crag here with Alpha at the foot of it, and when crag's the only thing in this control description, we know it must be at the middle of the foot. So I was happy to say that that one was Alpha to start off that station, even though I hadn't placed much of the detail on the right hand side yet, and that did show as I slowed up a bit for this second task, trying to place the eastern foot of the knoll. We had managed to place Bravo on the corner here, so we want to go just to the right hand side of that and a fair way back. So what I had seen was there's potentially some rock here coming across, and that's probably the crag just here, which is about where Delta is, and so maybe I'm wondering whether this one is actually a 0 and the knoll we want is a bit further back there. But there does seem to be a fairly distinct lump where Charlie is, and I can't really see where else on the map that could be, so that's probably the knoll that we want, and it is definitely on the eastern foot of it, so I'm going to stick with that one being Charlie for the second task. Before we then actually came forward to the re-entrant, which we have been talking about, and it's by the corner of the crag, and we have already said that Bravo is very nicely placed there, so that one was Bravo for me for the third task fairly quickly, although not my quickest task in this station. The fourth one here, though, being a crag, did take me a long time, and I'm wondering whether this is my second mistake, as what we wanted to do here is come down the crag from where we said Bravo is to the next corner along, wanting the northeastern part of it, which is going to be at the bottom of it, and following that crag round to the next corner is actually where Foxtrot is. So what was confusing me here was I was expecting to be able to see the gap between the two crags, but the gap is here, not where I wanted it here, and I thought Foxtrot was actually on this crag, but I think it's definitely in the right place there, and this one is Foxtrot for the fourth task. Well done if you did manage to get the one right. But then the final one came, and I was very quick here to say this one was a 0 as we came forward from where Foxtrot was, and we've already had Alpha. So I think it's this boulder here we want in this task, and there's clearly nothing on it, so it must be a 0 to round off the station. And to be honest, this station wasn't as hard as I thought it could be. Trying to pick out the detail with Delta and Echo would have been very difficult, but I thought that station was very good to round off the first half of the day. But we then moved into station 4, and this is where things got very hard, as I was struggling to pick out some detail actually in this area. I could see there was a crag by Echo and potentially a crag by Foxtrot as well, and I was really just trying to pick up some of the contours around here. And then when the map came up and we wanted a boulder, I couldn't seem to fit the land to the map in any way whatsoever, and I was looking around trying to find different places, and I was struggling to find any place which could fit, and so I did end up zeroing this. But really I have noticed that the area we are actually working with is down here on the map, and so the boulder that we want is miles away in the distance over here somewhere, and this one must be a 0 to open up. So well done if you did manage to spot that quicker. The second task came though, and here we wanted a crag, and to be honest I'm wondering whether this is actually Echo now, and I think it probably is, because what we can see in this area is we've spotted the re-entrant, which is where Charlie and Delta are. We come forward out the re-entrant and we find a boulder, which I think is this one here, although is it that there actually? Or I think I probably made another mistake. Yeah, I think it might be that or that, but whichever one it is around here, we know that the crag that we want is a bit further back and to the right of the boulder, so we're going back and to the right a bit, and we can see Echo's nicely placed on the crag. So this is probably a third mistake for me here, which is not a surprise. I did struggle with this station. But we then moved on to the third task, and we wanted to go in the re-entrant, wanting the northern part of this re-entrant, and this is probably Delta, not Charlie, but Charlie and Delta are definitely in the re-entrant. I think Delta's probably in the northern part now and Charlie in the southern part, so this is probably Delta rather than Charlie, and my fourth mistake. But as I say, this was the worst station for me, so I'm not really surprised. Well done if you did manage to do better. But we then moved on to the fourth task here, and what we wanted was the western part of the eastern crag. So coming around from where we think Echo was, we come round a bit and we can see there's this sort of triangular shape in the crags, and this does seem to be what this shape here is, and we want to go a bit to the right hand side of this sort of pincer shape, and that does bring us to where Foxtrot is on that bit of the crag. So I think that one is definitely Foxtrot for the fourth task. And then for the final task we came across to a boulder, and I'm wondering whether this one isn't Bravo anymore, and it's probably another 0 as I want it a bit closer to Echo. And actually if you look at this pincer, it kind of points towards the boulder we want, so I think it's probably this boulder instead, and that does make this one a 0 to end off the station. And it's probably 3 mistakes by me here, which doesn't surprise me at all. It was quite a tough station, and I think if you have managed to do well in that station, you have really proved yourself, so well done. Moving on to station 5 then though, for the penultimate station of the day, I thought things got a a bit easier, as what we had here was a crag on the left hand side with seemingly Bravo on a smaller crag, potentially behind it, but Alpha and Charlie are clearly on this massive crag. There does seem to be another lump of rock or a crag maybe back there, and another one as well with Delta, and maybe even one up there with Foxtrot as well. So when the map came up and we wanted a null, I was immediately thinking this one was a 0, as I couldn't see any crags around, and that's the only explanation I had for it being a 0. I can see clearly now that there are a couple of lumps which could be nulls down here, and the crag does seem to match that, and we will see as we move to the second task this is the case. But if you'd spotted that, you would have known that this null, like the boulder in Station 4, was too far away to be any of the kites, and this one's definitely a 0. So well done if you did manage to spot that. But then we came forward, and here we wanted the northeastern part of the southeastern crag in the circle, and it's by these two nulls. So I think if we're fitting this area together, we can see there's a bit of a re-entrant working its way up here. I can also see this shape of the crag coming around here, and so the northeastern part of the crag is this bit here where Charlie is nicely placed. So I do think that one was clearly Charlie for the second task. My time did increase a bit here, but I think this was just me adjusting to the area. And then we did move on to the third task, wanting the foot of the ringed contour hill, kind of in line from where we said Charlie was actually, and going behind the null. So what we did here is we can see that there's the crag, and then I'm presuming that Echo is actually the null here, and we want to go a bit further back to the ringed contour, which could easily be where Delta is placed, as I can see the ground does go up a bit, and we want the southern foot where Delta does seem to be, nicely placing that one as Delta. So I think that's a good Delta for the third one, and we did definitely increase our speed here going to the fourth task, where we wanted the southern foot of the southeastern null here. And if we are saying that this is a null, I think it's reasonable to say that this is a null here with the rock as well, and Foxtrot's definitely on the southern foot of that null, so it should be Foxtrot there for the fourth task, before finally we came to the crag which we said Charlie was on for the second task. But here we want the centre of the crag, so it's going to be this point down here, and we can see that if we work our way around from Charlie, we do reach Alpha kind of on the point of the crag. So that is going to be Alpha for the final task in this station, and as a penultimate station I did really like it. It's my second station with no mistakes, I'm pretty sure, and it's probably only these two with no mistakes, and I think I made some in the final one, but I did really like it. The details were quite clear, and even that first task on a null was fairly easy to spot. So well done if you did manage to get those, before finally we came to this one, and this is where all the paths did seem to be in the area, but they weren't on the map. So what I saw here was a boulder right in front of me with Foxtrot. There was a small ridge going up a hill here with Alpha, Bravo and Charlie following it. There were some rocks around here as well actually with Alpha, and maybe a crag here with Delta and Echo, or definitely an embankment. So when the map came up and I can see this embankment coming down, I knew this was kind of the right place. We weren't going to be miles off, and we want the biggest boulder in the area with the size of the boulder and the northeastern side of that boulder, so it's going to be coming towards us. And things I saw once I saw this massive boulder by Foxtrot and was thinking it could possibly be that, is the boulders over here by Alpha. And there's a couple of boulders in this sort of boulder cluster area which could fit this area by Alpha. You then have the boulder there hiding behind the trees as this boulder, and then the boulder we actually want, which does have Foxtrot on the northeastern side of it. So I'm happy with that one being Foxtrot for the first task. It's this second task which I'm querying more, wanting the re-entrant, and I'm wondering whether this one should be a 0, as I want it probably about here, or maybe that is too far to the left and it should be Bravo. Charlie's definitely too far away, Alpha's on these boulders, and probably halfway between them actually, if we're saying Charlie's on the crag up there, which it kind of looks like it is Bravo. So I'm going to stick with Bravo there, probably in that re-entrant, although the re-entrant could be down here as well, we'll have to see afterwards. But moving on from that Bravo, we then went up to some paved area, quite a long way back from where we said Foxtrot was. So we were looking up in line with Foxtrot, so it's either going to be Delta Echo or 0, and we had to decide whether we thought any of the kites were in the right place. But I have just spotted the paved area now, not where Delta and Echo is, but there's the flat bit up there. So that's the paved area we actually want. It's too far away from any of the kites, and this one is definitely a 0. Whilst if you did manage to spot that one quicker, I was just confident in saying these two weren't on any paved area. But then we did come forward for the fourth task, and we wanted the northeastern side of the southeastern boulder, which is the one which is included with these two boulder clusters, and I think we've already said that Alpha is on the northeastern side of the boulder we want there. So that one should be Alpha for the fourth task. And then this final task I had to think about even more, as here we wanted the re-entrant, and I could see we were looking at a crag up there, so what I was looking at was Charlie, and I could kind of see some rock around. I'm wondering whether this one should actually be a 0 now, as we don't want it on the crag, we want it on the re-entrant. I should probably have read the control description, but I'm thinking the re-entrant might actually be over there instead, behind the arrow. And so this is probably a 0 to end off the day, taking me up to 5 mistakes. But I do think that was a great station to end off the day. The paths didn't confuse too much, especially since we were told beforehand it might be the case that that could be an issue. But the features in front of us were clear. The paved area is now clear to me, and if you spotted that in the competition, you did do a very good job. But I do think it's a big thank you to you, Ha, and to Omo for putting on today's event. 5 mistakes does take me to a time of 392 seconds, which I don't think is too bad, but it's not going to be a winning position. Let's have a look and see where I am, and we can see that I am in 63rd, so actually a similar position to last time, and it is only an hour to go in this event, so we will have to see where we come, but I will join you then for the overall results. And we are back to see that I've only dropped slightly actually here in the hour that we had left, down to 65th place with a time of 392 seconds, which means I did make 5 mistakes. And looking at it, it was just the first task in station 1, which we said, also the 1 task in station 3 and the 2 in station 4 that we said, but the final station we said we probably made a mistake on the 2nd task. We didn't, it was actually the 5th task, so we will go and have a look at that afterwards. It is a very well done though to Lowry for winning today's event with a time of 176 seconds, making 1 mistake in the process, but he was still 34 seconds quicker than Anders in 2nd place, who was then 19 seconds quicker than Visa. So there were a couple that did make no mistakes today, so it might have been slightly easier, but still the winner making 1 mistake and winning the event definitely in station 2, where he won the station and went into 1st place and just held it for the rest of the day. Even making the mistake in station 4 didn't knock him into 2nd place, so very well done to Lowry for winning. In terms of the percentages here, the most interesting station was station 4, where none of the percentages really went any higher than 54%, which is very low in these circumstances. This is the station I struggled with the most, and even with the first task, only 49% of you, or 308, managed to notice that the 0 was miles away from the location, and you had managed to make things fit the area, mainly with Echo 220 going with that, but also 54 for Bravo as well. That does show that this station was definitely one of the hardest coming in on, but even the 2nd task, with only 204 thinking it was Echo, but 282 going with 0 like I did, and a few for Charlie and Delta as well. I think there could have been potentially some miscounting in that, but also the fact that quite a lot did go with Echo for the first task would have made you wonder whether it was Echo for the second one. The 3rd task here was the best answered, and it was one of my mistakes as well, with 344 or 54% of you going with Delta and 165 going with Charlie, which is what I went for. Those were the 2 in the re-entrant, but Delta was in the correct part of it, and so that was definitely the right answer. And the other 2 percentages as well at similar standards, so this was definitely the hardest station of the day percentage wise, and really the percentages here didn't really get much higher. There were a couple of stations where there were a couple of high ones and a couple of low ones, but most of the stations today really hovered around the 60 to 70% mark, so I think if you did only get a few right in every station, you have still done a very good job, so very well done. We will go back now though and have a look at the final station of this event, as we do need to look at the mistake that I made in the analysis earlier, and it was me saying that I thought potentially Bravo was in the wrong place here, not in the re-entrant, and maybe this one was a 0, but it does seem it was in about the right place, and I can see that it does line up with the boulders there, for example, so I can believe that. It was just this final task being 0 rather than Charlie, and looking at the solutions you can see that Charlie is only half the distance between Bravo and the actual location we want, and so the crag we want is even further back, and that definitely is the case. I can see that now, and we did want the re-entrant rather than the crag, so Charlie is nowhere near the location, and that was definitely a 0. Well done if you did manage to get that one right. But that does bring us to the end of today's event, so let's have a look at the standings for the whole season so far, and we can see that at the moment I am down in 48th place, moved up a bit even though my 2 positions have been similar at 61st and 65th. It does seem like people that did well in the first event haven't had the best of events in the second day, and so being consistent has moved me up the leaderboard. But at the moment we can see that Alessio has managed to hold on to the 1st place after winning the first event and coming 31st today, but he's only 0.3 points ahead of Matiha in 2nd place, who is then only about 0.5 points ahead of Anders in 3rd place after his 2nd place today. So after 2 events now, it's got a lot closer in these standings, and it is still really anyone's game, with Lowry in 4th place, just over a point behind Anders, and then Ralph as well, less than a point behind Lowry. So I'm excited to see how this does play out over the final 3 days. But then we do look at the clubs, and we can see see that Massey are still in the lead after coming third today. Rather than their consistent first places, they did struggle with this event, but they are still 16 points ahead of Linköping's OK, who have managed to move up into second place, and then ETOC as well coming up into third place, 5 points behind Linköping's. And we can see already how volatile these standings are. They're moving around a lot because Linköping's and ETOC weren't even in the top 5 after yesterday's event, so these standings could easily change even further throughout the week, with LS37 2 points behind ETOC and MTV Season 6 points behind them. So Massey still holding on to the lead, but anything could still change coming into these final 3 days. And then also finally for the countries, we can see that the Finns have actually managed to take first place away from the Italians today, winning the event, and the Swedes are only 0.05 points behind them in second place. When a maximum score of a country is 500 in an event, that is a really small margin. It couldn't be any closer at this stage. So this is going to be a well fought battle that we are going to have to follow very closely as we go into the final 3 days. But we also have the Italians moving down to 10 points behind the Swedes, and then the Czechs being 16 points behind the Italians, and the Germans also being another 5 points behind that. It doesn't seem as close between those countries because of the Finns and Swedes being very close together, but with this massive point spread margin, anything could still change, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this plays out across the rest of the week. But that is the end of today's event, so it is as always a big thank you to the planner and advisor Juha and to Omo. I have enjoyed today a lot, and I am really excited to see what tomorrow will bring. But that is going to be the end of today's video, so thank you all again for watching. If you'd like to like the video as always, and be subscribing to the channel, making sure you hit the bell next to the subscribe button and select all so you're notified whenever I release a video. And also as always, be remembering to share these videos. The numbers of competitors has been dropping off a bit. We're on about 600 to 700 a day, but these events are really fun, and I'm sure if you show people these videos and the fun that I'm having and tell them how much fun you're finding them, they'll come back into competing. So do make sure you are sharing the simulator and these videos with trailer competitors new and old. And then as always, be commenting down below any extra analysis you think I missed from this video, or any extra small bits you think I should add. And I will join you again tomorrow for the 3rd round of the TORUS tournament.